it's Mark here, and today's tip is on language games. Now you might think that games in the language classroom are quite straightforward and that a video of tips on the subject is not necessary, but I've observed several inexperienced teachers make fundamental errors and mess up games. Now I'm a big fan of games in the language classroom, but not all games are equal, so let's start with a quick checklist of what makes a good game. Number one, there should be good use of language involved, and that can be either active or passive. Listening, with a real reason for listening, is great language practice. It's not always about speaking. Number two, it should be quick and easy to set up and explain. Number three, a good game in my book is one that you can use with a variety of levels. And number four, following on from that flexibility over levels, is flexibility on how long a game lasts. I like ones that kind of expand and contract, so ones that can fill 5 minutes or 25 minutes if necessary. Number five, the best games are the ones that can be recycled with the same class. And number six, they should engage the students. In other words, they should be fun. Okay, so that's what makes a good game in my opinion. Now let's move on to my 6 points for playing language games effectively. The first point to make about games in the language classroom is that it's sometimes better to refer to them as activities. The word game has the connotation of not being serious, and as a result, in the minds of some students, particularly adults, language games can be regarded as not worthwhile and a waste of time. I believe nothing could be further from the truth, but if you need to sell a game to sceptical students, call it an activity. Okay, point number two is that games need just as much preparation as other activities. The fact that an activity is a game does not automatically guarantee its success in the classroom. Any instructions or rules must be explained clearly, and the game must be pitched at the right level for the class. If a game is too easy or too hard, the result will be the same. Your students will quickly lose interest. Point number three, should students play as individuals or in pairs or groups? Now I always advocate doing things in pairs or teams of 3 or more. Students feel less intimidated if they can work with a classmate, and teams provide you with a way of helping weaker students by mixing them with stronger ones. Also, if a class of 15 is playing in 5 teams of 3, each team's turn will come round a lot quicker, so everyone is more likely to stay focused. I also prefer running games from the front of the class so that I can keep everyone's attention rather than having students play amongst themselves in small groups where attention can wander. Point number four, how will students answer? I think turn taking is by far the best approach, as it allows teams time to think and collaborate. Asking students to shout out the answer can quickly descend into chaos, and the first person to put their hand up means that the strongest students are always the ones that answer. Point number five, how are you going to score? Now this is a minor practical consideration, but one worth mentioning quickly nevertheless. I advise using tally sticks like these for scoring, because it means that you're just adding to what's on the board, whereas if you use numbers, you have to keep rubbing numbers out as the scores change. And number six, leave yourself some wriggle room. As I've already said, a game is essentially an activity for practicing language, so you need to keep all students interested and participating until the end. You don't want one team looking like runaway winners straight from the beginning, as that's going to demotivate the other teams. I've already mentioned mixing stronger students with weaker ones, but you can also award points for good pronunciation, particularly good answers, and so on, in an effort to keep things balanced. In the same vein, you can deduct points for students who speak their own language or speak out of turn. The other tactic is to play in rounds so that more points are at stake in round 4 than in the previous 3 rounds, for example. This means that it's still possible for a team which is lagging behind to overtake the leaders and win in the final round. Okay, that's all for language games. Remember, if you found these tips useful, there are plenty more at networktefl.com. Thanks for listening.